Hi, you guys. Welcome back. It's Tuesday, which is supposed to be your emotional path to peace, but today is actually going to be Monday's mental path to peace video because I switched them around. I did Tuesdays yesterday, and today I'm doing Mondays because the subject matter fit in better. What we're going to do for our mental path to peace today is basically I'm going to go over my New Year's resolutions. When you make goals, it's always good to look at them after the fact, after you've put in your most diligent effort. So to me, I was trying to make it till the very end of the month, at least 30 days. And today is the 30th day, even though this month has 31 days, so I'll still be doing it tomorrow. But I wanted to make it to the end of the month and push with the goals that I had set and try really hard to accomplish them. And then at the end of the month, I would give an accounting and I would revise what needs revision. So I think that's a good way to look at goals and to do goals. You know, you sit down and you're like, okay, here's my New Year's resolutions. And a good portion of us, we decide these huge goals that might be way out of reach, but, you know, in our head, we can do it. And then we really can't. Like, it's just not in our wheelhouse at that time. But I think it's a good idea, like I said, to give it your full effort of really trying to do it so that you're not just kind of giving yourself an excuse after 3 days, oh, this is too hard, I'm going to give up. Like, really try for the whole 30 days to actually do it. And then you can kind of sit back and say, okay, I've given it 30 days. I've really tried. Is that a realistic goal for me the rest of the year? That is the thing about goals. You want them to be reachable, realistic, but also challenging. So we're going to go through them one by one. We're going to talk about how I did. I'm going to give you my accounting, and we're going to see if these were reachable, if they were realistic, and yet still challenging. Before I begin, though, I'm going to mention one thing because this is something I've actually learned about doing goals this time around, which I've done goals throughout my life. Like, this is not a new pattern for me. Like I said, the 7 Paths to Peace is something that I've done since I was a teenager, but it has morphed over time. Like, I've tweaked some things. For example, it didn't start with the 7 Paths, and I was following other people's philosophies and the way that they do goals and things like that. So this is kind of what I've come down to, but this time I did learn something different about the goal setting process. Because normally, especially with my mind and the way I am and my perfectionist mentality, I'll set this really lofty goal. And then when you set a goal, okay, that's your main statement, then you're supposed to set like almost mini goals. It's your plan to attain that goal. So you have a goal, let's say you want to get married. Okay, that's a pretty lofty goal, right? Okay, so what are you going to do? You're not just going to walk up to the next person you see, hey, will you marry me? Like, that's not going to happen. You have to date, right? Well, how many people do you want to sift through every month or every week, you know? And what type of person are you actually looking for? Because in your sifting process, if you ask people out on date that don't fit the type of person you actually want to marry, well, then your dates are null and void in that sense. They don't have any efficacy, right? So when you make these goals, you really actually have to think and think and think and twist and needle them down and mold them and, you know, shave off the rough areas. And it's really supposed to be a process so that you actually believe, okay, this is a viable goal. Now, I've gone through that process where I shave things down and I mold it and I twist and I think about it. I pray and I fast over the goals. This time, because I'm still having a lot of interruptions. It just kills my train of thought. Anyways, this time, because of my mental state and where I'm at, I didn't give such intensity to these goals because I was like, just do something. Like I told you, my mantra was to just do something. Momentum to foundation. So I did think about these goals, obviously, but I didn't do all this processing and whittling down. I still think that that's completely valuable. In my situation, though, I was like, just do something. Just what are you willing to do?
Well, the thing is, you don't just launch it on them, you know. You got to negotiate with the person. And you also got to teach them to negotiate with themselves. And this is something that's very useful to know. You know, you can tyrannize yourself into doing things, but I wouldn't recommend it. What I would recommend instead is that you ask yourself what you're willing to do. Say, well, let's figure out what your aims are. You got to have some aims, whatever they are. And they might say, well, I'm so depressed I don't have any aims. And then I say, well, pick the least objectionable of the aims and act it out for a while and see what happens. So the trick, if you're doing therapeutic work with someone and you're helping them establish a structure, is to find out what they'll do. Assuming you want to get better, there's usually something you can figure out that would constitute a step towards some sort of concrete goal. And my presumption, it's a behavioral presumption fundamentally, is that small accruing gains that repeat are unbelievably powerful. You know, he said you can look at your life and you can see what isn't right about it. I mean, all you have to do is look. And then you can start to fix that. And the way you fix it is by noticing what you could in fact fix.
So this was my starting point. Okay, so again, like that was the crux. Just do something, right? So I put these goals together with that in mind, just that idea. I knew that some of them probably weren't going to work out, but I picked things that I was like, I could probably achieve that. Maybe I could achieve that. They're so simple. They're so obvious, which is why, I mean, a lot of people would be like, no, you need to do these bigger, loftier things. But for me and where I'm at, these were things that I thought might possibly be reachable. You know, I told you guys in that first video too that I might not accomplish all of them, and I'm okay with that. What I learned about the goal setting process doing it this way, instead of making a super lofty goal and then all of these smaller goals or plans to get there, because of the mental state I'm in and because the goals were just simple goals, they're almost like I'm saying before, I'd put a big goal up top, and to me I thought that's the goal, and then all these smaller bullet points are the plan to reach that goal. But these smaller bullet points, and I knew they really are smaller goals, but a lot of times that big lofty goal, I don't know, sometimes like that's really not realistic. Maybe that's not really reachable. Again, using the example of getting married, if you haven't even been on a date in the last 2 years, maybe that shouldn't be your New Year's resolution by the end of the year, right? Or maybe it should, like my video a day goal. That was super lofty. So it's up to you. It's dependent on where you're at. But what I personally learned this time around is that these smaller goals are the goal. They're the main goal. It's not even necessarily that I need to have all these little goals to reach that big goal. Again, that totally does work in a lot of ways, and maybe it's just the difference between my mental capability now versus my mental capability then. But I did learn something important through this process, and I believe that will continue to unfold for me. And what I learned is just keeping it as simple as possible. So, and like I said in that first few videos, I told you guys that I probably wasn't going to accomplish all of these, and I knew that. I was okay with that because I literally was going from 0 to 100. So even though these aren't real lofty goals for you guys, or for maybe a lot of people, for me, they were just to have more than one was a lot, was a ton. So I knew I wasn't going to accomplish all of them, but I thought, well, each of these are really simple, so let's just start here. Each category has a goal, and each of them are fairly simple, so let's just start there. Even if you can't, they are reachable, but maybe not quite as attainable, right? But they were something. So, and they were something, and they were simple. And so that's where I thought I'd start.
So sometimes depression is this heavy cloud that makes it hard to even make a single step towards it. The first step is extremely difficult.
Sometimes it's way worse than that. Like I had clients who were so depressed they literally couldn't get out of bed. So what's their first step? It's like, can you sit up once today? No. Can you prop yourself up on your elbows once today? Like you scale back the dragon till you find one that's conquerable, that moves you forward. There's a rubric for life. scale back the dragons till you find one conquerable, and it'll give you a little bit of gold, commensurate with the struggle. But the plus side of that, because you think that's depressing. You mean I have to start by sitting up? Well, you do if you can't sit up.